Hello, hello. Welcome to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, hello. This is Abel Pacheco, your host for the 5 Talents Podcast. We are super excited today, as always, because we have another amazing guest, Mr. Alex Olson. Alex, thank you very much for joining us, man. How are you doing?
Oh, it's awesome. I love being on. This is so cool. I think this might be my first Facebook Live experience, so I'm excited.
You are live, my friend. Thank you very much for joining the show. And I wanted Alex to come on. Let me at least give everyone a little bit of background about you, and then turn it over to you for a full introduction. But I have Alex on the show because he is one of those amazing resources in commercial real estate that every investor really needs. He's an investor and a broker. He specializes in helping buyers get brokers' attention. He knows it himself. He is one. He helps other people, and he's really, has one of those backgrounds, 15 years in the financial technology space before going full-time to commercial real estate. So if you know me and if you've heard a number of our shows, I also had 13 years in the tech space. So we have an amazing rapport already. Me and Alex were connected on LinkedIn and have, just seen each other. We've, seen a lot of the back and forth value that both of us try to create as much as possible for the people that are connected to us through social platforms. So this is a perfect opportunity to have a great podcast. So Alex, thanks, man. Thanks for joining.
Oh, it's finally great to connect on, over video. And my background is like everybody else's, it seems, where you're in different things and you fall in love with real estate. And the great thing about real estate is there's many different aspects of it. You can do financing, contingency, you can do building, you can do contracts, all that kind of stuff. And as a broker, I get to do a lot of those. So that's really why I like it. I like the physical nature. So if you look at my, my disc profile, so to speak, it's like, I like stuff that's hands-on, but I also like stuff that's in the office. And so how do I find a great fit for that? And that's real estate, because I could be out in the field looking at different projects, and I can also be in the office analyzing.
Yeah.
And so that's how I fell in love with real estate. And as being in the tech world, sometimes you get behind the desk for too long and you just kind of start to lose your mind along with your friends. And so
yeah,
it's great to be out from underneath that and into the real world, as I call it.
Yeah. That's you're 100% correct. Sitting behind a computer is a tough one all day. And, in real estate, you get to get outside, drive around, check out some properties, go tour it up, and, meet some great people and network along the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All with the purpose, at least mine, I'm sure yours is probably similar as the investor. Financial freedom. How do we figure out how to create wealth, multiply it, and continue on that path? So Alex, you're, probably right in line with myself as well. Yes?
Absolutely. Yeah. I believe that real estate is a great wealth builder. I take that back. It doesn't always go up in value, but it does over time. You can look at every study and every single economics book, which I've read a lot of them, and the value continues to rise at a higher pace than inflation if you make the right investments with the right people, as we all know. Mistakes happen, but I think that's why you and I are here, right? Is to help people avoid those mistakes.
Yeah, 100%. That's what we do on a daily basis. If you don't know me or really didn't know the business that I'm in, we help other investors create and receive some of that, opportunity to invest in it so that they can create financial freedom, right, for themselves. And that's what we do. We do syndication of larger multifamily apartment complexes, give investors the opportunity to get into an amazing asset class, amazing vehicle that most of the time you wouldn't be able to do on your own, for the most part. And so that's what we do, man. So Alex, before we kind of dive into the true real estate part, which is going to be a great topic, why don't you tell us a little bit of like what got you into real estate in the first place? Was it your first deal? Was it some kind of book you wrote? Was it book you read? Was
Right.
it, your wife prompting you? Everyone's got this backstory that kind of leans towards, why. Can you share any light to that?
I can try my best. When I reflect on my background, I grew up on a farm. So my dad owned land, but different land than developable land. I mean, it's farmland. And I didn't really like working on the farm, but there was something I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. But being an entrepreneur, even though I'm still one, is very hard work to find something that is repeatable and you can make lots of money at and build wealth.
Mhm.
And so as I continued my life journey, went to college, got a degree in graphic design, economics minor, that kind of stuff. And through work, I was still always looking for something else. So I had a full-time job, similar to you. And I felt like I had a decent, a decent mind towards what would be a good real estate buy, on the location basis. And I still didn't pull the trigger. And so I'm still at my W-2 job. And my wife and I, we'd saved up all of our money, all the bonuses we ever made. I developed a social network that was pretty small, but made some decent money for me back in the Web 2.0 days, all centered around movies. And so I made a few dollars doing that. So we saved all of that money and bought a cabin on our lake here, tore that cabin down, and we started building our house. And I always wanted to be an architect when I was a kid, but I wasn't smart enough in math or didn't apply myself well enough anyway, that it just didn't work out. And so, but I did a lot of our design around the house, having a graphic design background. And so we built that house, and I probably managed, having never built a house before, but I probably managed 40 to 60% of that whole building process and fell in love with, hey, I can do this decent. Not that I could, go out and do it the whole thing all the time, but it was like, this is a lot of fun. And so we had created this house, and we did such a good job on it that we had established a very large home equity line of credit. And so I took that, and my wife and I talked about it. I really kind of twisted her arm, but said, hey, let's invest in real estate. And so I bought 3 or 4 properties here in town, all within really good locations, all what I would call near turnkey investments. So they didn't need a complete gut job or anything like that. It was, some light value add, I think is what we say now, and fell in love with that, but was still looking for the next step. I was out of money. I'd, done well with these investments. Didn't know anything about syndicating at the time. It was like, how do I get out of my W-2 day job, right? And so a house I tried to buy, the owner of that, I was cold calling him and talking to him every other week saying, hey, when are you going to sell me this house? He and I developed a friendship. And so anyway, fast forward a year after, he didn't sell me the house, he sold it to somebody else, but we still were friends. Fast forward a year after that, and he's kind of my mentor. And so I said, hey man, how do I get out of my W-2 job? And he's like, you should go get your license. And I said, well, I don't want to go sell houses. He's like, you don't have to sell houses. You can sell multifamily. You can sell commercial. And so I took that idea that he gave me, I give him all the credit in the world, and said, man, I think I could really do a good job at this. And so I went out, studied for the test, got my license a month later, and prepared and saved, closed out a few deals, but tried to save up as much as I could so I could quit my W-2 job. Pandemic hit, which was a horrible situation for everybody. Thankfully, I got let go, and that accelerated my path to commercial real estate. I was already planning to leave at a later date. No one really knew
Yeah.
except for a couple select friends.
Yeah.
And so I accelerated that, which was awesome. And then even during that time, I kind of started to develop the system to work with buyers in commercial real estate. And that's where I'm at now.
Hey, that's awesome. It's amazing to hear somebody, just how we did it, how you got there, and the journey. And some people say, "Oh, you're a commercial real estate broker," and they say, "Oh, you're up in this higher status." You're
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, but there's all these different things that trials, obstacles, challenges you had to overcome to kind of get there." And it's nice to see how people get there. So,
Yeah.
man, thank you very much for sharing. I sincerely appreciate it. Yeah, COVID was a drag. It is a drag right now, right? But we're doing the best we can, right? So that's awesome.
Yeah, and I took it as an opportunity. My wife and I were, she was obviously not happy I was let go because it was a shock and way too soon. But at the same time, it was, let's go, let's get this going, let's keep the process going. I can do this full time now, whereas I was probably spending 25, 30 hours a week on real estate as it was, plus my 40-hour job. So I told, it's like I told my dad, I said, Dad, well, today I lost my job, but it's also the first day that I get to fully concentrate on real estate. And, everybody's happy for me. And
yeah,
we've had some great success since, and just looking forward to keeping it going.
Oh, that's great. And so I know a little bit about you from just, our relationships and what we've been able to establish in the past year. But for everyone else that doesn't know Mr. Alex Olson, tell us what you do today and how you do it, and maybe the market, and we'll just get into a good conversation here.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm in commercial real estate. I'm a commercial real estate broker for Clemons Real Estate, which focuses on only multifamily and commercial style properties. But my specialty really is in helping buyers come into the market. Even if you're in the market, I help you too. But there's a lot of investors similar to where you're at in San Antonio. I'm in Kansas City, but a lot of people want to invest in, these different non-coastal markets, because they're affordable, because they have better cap rates and cash on cash return. And so I really felt like, when I was talking about my journey earlier, that, I was obviously a buyer and I kind of knew what I wanted to look for, but the brokers that I was working with, even though they were smaller deals, they didn't really know what they were, what a buyer kind of expected. And so that's one of the reasons why I went with Clemons Real Estate, is because there's another guy here, Logan Freeman, who I think everybody knows. He also does the same thing, and we partner on a lot of deals together. We fine tune our process because, there's a lot of 1031 exchange guys in New York or LA, and a lot of gals too, that maybe they had a investment property, a house that's worth $1 million or $2 million, and they've sold that, and now they've got all this money that they need to place somewhere, and they've chosen to do cash flow. So, they might invest in San Antonio or here in Kansas City, and I take them on a journey with Logan through our BRSS process, and that is that we help find a lender for them. We help find a property manager for them. We help find attorneys. We can help with insurance. Insurance is a big deal, as you know. It can really make or break a deal if you don't, first of all, if it's in a flood zone, which is not that common in Kansas City. But then second, if I'm just going to go with my dad's State Farm rep. Might be fine, might be the best rates out there, but there's commercial real estate brokers that commercial real estate agents on the insurance side that can really make or break that deal. So we develop, the entire team for them if they want it. And then we're putting properties in front of them. Hey, what do you think about this one? What do you think about that one? And they really kind of gravitate to that. And because, most brokers, maybe you haven't experienced this, but they don't really give you the time of day half the time because, and rightfully so, they're busy. They don't know if you're real. They've never met you, never heard about you. So those are the challenges that a lot of investors have when they come into Kansas City. And my goal is to help them complete that process.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you very much for illuminating this, right? Because Yes, commercial multifamily investor. What I think some people that don't realize that are not in the commercial real estate world, they think, oh, you can buy these properties on something like an MLS in single family, which means in an MLS, I can just go look, I can get access and look at all the properties that are listed for sale. In commercial real estate, it is not like that. There's no MLS for commercial real estate. There may be some aggregator platforms that
Mm-hmm.
attempt to do some of that, Crexy and LoopNet, but for the most part, there isn't an MLS in commercial. So the brokers spend a lot of time and effort and energy, whether it's a big shop or a small one, to outbound, to go talk to get in front of commercial property owners to get them to list their properties. And when they do, all that time, effort and attention goes into that. Those brokers only kind of work with end up, for the most part, is like, hey, here's how I know it's going to close. Send to my, again, rightfully so. They send to the people that they know are going to buy the property because they're trying to do right by the seller. So they talk to a buyer, but pretty much leaves a bunch of buyers out. If you haven't done a bunch of transactions, you get left out for the most part, and that's kind of what it is. So you can either spend your time, effort, and energy into cold calling yourself, which I've heard the response rate is, 1,000 calls will get you one deal
Yep.
potentially,
Yeah, maybe.
and maybe, right. So, that's most times commercial real estate investors, somebody like myself, I didn't have time to do that in the professional world. There was no way. So I call a broker and see if I can help me, and then see if they can help me buy something. And then I don't have a track record because I haven't done a deal before. Before a few years ago, we are in about 800 doors now. We went from 8 single family to about 800 plus doors at any given
That's
point.
awesome.
So we're excited about that. But with the first deal, I was like, I couldn't say I did that. So how do I get your first deal? But so that's something you spend a lot of time helping just regular, everyday, average investors that may be trying to 1031 up, or they've invested for a while and now I'm trying to roll it into commercial property. I don't know the world. You kind of made this turnkey for them a little bit in your market. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly right. We have, Logan and I, we produce a market commentary every other week that, talks about Kansas City and the world in general from a real estate perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then a weekly deal flow, which has my top 10 available deals. And I think right now, I don't know if it's all 10, I think it's pretty dang close to all 10 of them are, off market stuff that Logan and I have sourced. But we're not afraid to put listed stuff on there if we think it's a great deal that someone's been overlooking,
Mm-hmm.
or just didn't market it very well. We find that a lot of times too. There's maybe a residential broker or agent that is marketing it and they don't really know exactly what they're doing. So we'll promote that out there and work with the other agent and make sure we get deals done. We're all about closing deals for people, because the more people that become interested in Kansas City, of course, the more deals that transact.
Yeah.
And also, honestly, I really like having good investors coming in, buying a property that has maybe been owned for 10, 20, 30 years and hasn't had a whole lot of work done to it. Getting a new investor in there, everybody's excited. They'll upgrade it and make it better, therefore make the area better, therefore make, the city I live in better. So, as much turnkey as we can do on these, we really like to provide that level of service for them. And the reason why the 1031 people are important is because they're likely to close. If you look at it in a market, they've got a deadline, they've got property, they've got money. They're probably going to close on something. Now, they may not close on your deal, but that's why Logan and I work our tail off on, making sure we've got the right properties in front of them and treat them the correct way to where they have the confidence to come into the market and, don't just get brushed off by another broker and then you're sitting there trying to find out what the heck a DST is with nowhere to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Alex, I might ask you to, for our listeners, right, passive and investors and also active investors. I'll start off maybe with the 1031. Neither one of us are tax experts or 1031
No.
intermediaries. So, but I do want to illuminate a little bit what a 1031 is and how it operates. And you probably know about this as well. But if you have let's say a single family property, when you buy it for 100 and you sell it for 2, you have to pay capital gains taxes on the difference between the basis and the profit. So if you bought it at 100 and it's now worth 200, that 100K upside is your gain. And typically you pay some kind of, taxes. I think it varies based on your W-2 income or active and passive, all that stuff. But let's just say it's 20% or 15 to 20%. So that means I made 100, but I'm going to pay 15 to 20K in taxes. So that's a drag. It's a bummer. If I want to avoid that in layman's terms, I would take this property, and as long as I'm trading up, I can take that 200K and roll it into my next deal, and I can avoid the capital gains taxes as long as I'm doing it within certain parameters of the IRS. That's the 1031 exchange. So that's what Alex is talking about. And that 1031 exchange can be done over and over and over. And you start with a $100,000 profit and go up to a $200,000 example, to a $400,000 example, to a 700 to million to 10 million without paying the basis of taxes, capital gains taxes on every one of those transactions, which is just amazing, right? So I know there's some talks about, Biden and, if he may take some of this stuff away, but, there's so many people that are invested in real estate. I think we're all hoping that this exchange will still be there for us, but assuming that it is and nothing stays, nothing changes, what else did I miss along these timing? You deal with this more than I do. There's time restrictions, there's qualified properties. What can you illuminate on this just to give our listeners a little more education on 1031?
Yeah. So real quick. So on the 1031, the history of it. So it's been around since I believe it's the 1920s. I was actually just reading a book yesterday on, because I do a lot of 1031 reading, and I think it's been around since the 1920s, and there's several protection iterations within Congress that has continued to protect the 1031 exchange, and then, add certain things to it. And the Tax and Jobs Act of 2017 has certain things in there that protect 1031, and the whisper is that Biden may or may not roll some of that back. I wouldn't be concerned about any of that, just because if you look at members of Congress, I don't know what the percent is, but I bet it's dang close to 95% have real estate investments somewhere. Yeah. And they're not going to want to completely roll that back. Now, they might make tweaks to it where if you're trying to roll $1 billion into 10 billion, you might have to pay a tax or two on that. I don't know. Yeah. But for me as a smaller investor, I doubt it's going to impact me. Yep. But the other piece to the 1031 exchange on there that is important is from the day you close your relinquishing property. So the property you're selling, also called the down leg, is when your clock starts. And you have 45 days to identify up to 3 properties. Okay, you can actually identify more. There's some other IRS rules in there. You can identify up to 200% of the original sold price of your down leg. So if you sold it for $1 million, and you can identify 10 properties that equal 2 million. Okay, and so those are kind of the basics of it. And then from that date of close, you have 6 months to close that property out.
Yeah.
And so, so you have 45 days to identify, and then let's just call it 4.5 months from that date to close those all out. The goal is, when I bring somebody in, a client in, the goal is to really say, okay, what's your identification deadline? Well, my identification deadline is February 1st. Okay, well, let's try and get something under contract that you really like, that you probably want to close out now. So that way you have a really good chance of getting past your due diligence period with your inspections and everything before your time runs out. And then you also still have, 2 more properties to identify as your backup. But, so many people, when they're looking to exchange out of their 1031, they're looking for the unicorn. And Logan and I have talked about this offline a lot, where, he and I have said, well, okay, Well, there's no unicorns left in the world. Obviously, they don't exist. So look at something that's going to be pretty dang nice.
Yeah.
You can always trade out of it. You can always trade out of it. You can always sell it. You can always refinance it, all those different things. And so you want a nice, I'm a big baseball fan, so you want a really nice, strong double, maybe a single that drives in some runs for you to get some points on the board as your 1031 exchange investment, especially as you come into the market for the first time. And if you're not a super experienced investor, why come in and say, hey, I want to buy a 6 cap property that I can get to a 10 cap when the property is, half burnt down, in a war zone, and, is going to probably bury you from stress. You probably have a stroke. So none of those things are worth it when you're dealing with taxable income, in my opinion. So that's just kind of some words of wisdom when you're going through the stress of a 1031 exchange.
Yeah, this is good. That's great insight. So the timing factor, I've got to select a property. I've got to select a few of them very quickly. And, if you're dealing with a decision that's a few $100,000, millions of dollars, not the most comfortable position to be under the gun. And then if you're looking for a unicorn, well, it's hard enough to find one, but it's even harder to find them within a select, 45-day or 60-day period, and then gotta wrangle them in 6 months. So that's even harder. And I agree with what you guys are saying. I don't need to crush it. I just need to do better, and I can do it better again and again and again. And I'm getting my base hits again and again, get some runs on the board. And then all of a sudden, we're scoring. So, we're winning the game after long enough time. So I love that mentality. Right. And somebody that's not in the commercial world, like, I don't know where to begin. I started in single family, for example. I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 exchanges, and now I'm dealing with $1 million. I got to buy this like commercial property. I don't even know where to begin. I did single family for 10 years before I moved over to commercial. And I realize now it's a very different animal. A lot of similarities, but different. So that's where somebody like yourself comes in and helps people do this.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, man. Hello. You're listening to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review, and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. So tell us, in your perspective, like, how do I get a broker's attention to actually spend some time with somebody that has little to no experience in the commercial world? And let's use this as a good jumping point. Like, how does that even work?
Yeah, that's obviously that happens all the time. And I get, calls, I don't know, every day or so. Hey, I want to buy this property. Can you send me some info on it? My first response in my head is, yeah, sure, I'll send it to you when I get a chance. But right now I'm super busy, so I might forget. So the best approach, though, when you're trying to get attention of a broker is you come in with, even if you're brand new to the industry or brand new to commercial real estate, try to come in with at least the mentality of, I've got to have a pre-approval letter from a bank or proof of funds, or with knowing that that's got to be one of my first 1 or 2 questions to the broker is, hey, look, I know I need a bank. I don't have one. Who can you introduce to me? And that's if you don't have one. because that tells the broker that, okay, this person's serious. They know they need to have a bank. That's the number one thing, or some kind of proof of funds. And then the second piece to that is, coming in and at least know a little bit about the market. If you're coming if I was going into San Antonio, for example, and I'm coming in and I say, hey, I need to have 8% cap rate on anything I buy. You'll probably go tell me to pound sand, there's nothing going to be out here, right? So
Nothing.
you got to know a little bit about the market when you come into it, and have realistic expectations. Otherwise, the broker goes, subconsciously, they go, this guy or gal has no idea about this market. They don't care. They think I'm just going to give them the best deal I got. And they're going to, just do whatever I tell them to because they're making commission on it. And that's just not the case. So you got to understand the market. And if you don't understand the market, you don't know where to start. Still, great opportunity to say, hey, look, Mr. or Mrs. Broker, can you send me a CoStar report? Can you send me any kind of report you have on the market? I'm considering investing in this zip code or this neighborhood, but I don't know anything about it. And that tells a broker, again, that, oh my gosh, this person's done 2 seconds worth of research to know that they're, something about the city. And, then you can start to get that attention of the broker goes, okay, this person might be interested. This person might be real. And then they're willing to give a little bit of time with a broker. Really anybody that's self-employed, but it's all about time and where you're spending your time. And so they're not going to spend time with somebody who seems less than qualified and never will be.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the way you kind of break it down. It's just the honest place and where you're at, but the right indicators that show you're serious about moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about the market in Kansas City, but if I was going to buy there, I would probably start with a good CoStar, and the CoStar report is going to tell me, the different areas and rent growth, my comps, my sales, population, demographics. There's so many. It's like if you haven't seen the CoStar report, like 70, 80, 100 something pages.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information. But just even that, hey, I'm looking for a good broker. I'm thinking about, buying in the area. Can we start with the CoStar report? Is that something you can help me with? And it may also indicate you really don't know much about it and you're learning, but at least let me categorize you as a serious person that may be a buyer at some point, and that will catch a little bit of attention, or,
Absolutely.
be honest of where you're at, right?
Yeah. I mean, if someone says, hey, can you send me a CoStar report? I never talked to them. I might try and pick their brain a little bit and say, who are you? What's your name? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then, by that time, usually I've developed at least kind of a trust, friendship relationship with them. And I'll follow up in, 2, 3, 4 weeks and say, hey, do you have any questions about the report? Or what did you think about this neighborhood? And it almost quiz them, like, hey, what do you think about page 26? And to kind of see if they actually read it. But it's a good, it's a very good basic start.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, I hear this term get thrown out all the time: off-market properties, and being from the single-family world, there's a lot of off-market properties because there's a lot of sellers, and people call a sign on the road, and that kind of thing. But in the commercial space, it could mean something different. So what is, maybe illuminate this also for those that are considering maybe their first investment in commercial real estate. What's the difference between off market, or what is it in commercial real estate?
So that means a bunch of different things to a bunch of different people. You're absolutely right. And it's probably market specific, I would bet, a little bit too. In Kansas City, you have CoStar, which you touched on, CoStar, LoopNet, Digsy, which are all kind of an MLS that has a lot of the on-market properties on there, which means that a seller of a commercial property has granted permission to a commercial real estate broker to publish it to the world. There are a lot of sellers that are willing to do that, especially in the non-multifamily space. If you're selling a shopping center, an office building, those kind of things, there's no confidential information really in there. Of course, financials always are, but in terms of, rent rolls and people and all that kind of stuff. And so those are oftentimes blasted. Multifamily has always kind of been a little bit more under the radar just because it trades so much and so fast. And so, off market in the multifamily world means no one's really putting it onto those platforms. It's also not on a large commercial broker, or sorry, a national commercial brokerage company like a CBRE, like a Colliers, Cushman Wakefield, the national flags. They have their own website that they put on, sometimes only their own stuff on it. And those are also, but those would be considered on market. And then you have a lot of stuff where a broker has developed a relationship with a seller over the years or in a short period of time, where the seller says, you know what, I don't really need to sell it. I don't really necessarily want to sell it. But hey, if someone comes to me and offers me $2 million for this, I'll sell it. And then the broker says, okay, cool. Can you send me the rent roll? Can you send me the trailing 12-month profit loss? Can you send, all those kind of things. And so the broker gathers that information up, but you can't really just blast that out there to your list or to an email list you buy. You kind of keep that in. I mean, people use the word pocket listing. I don't like to use the word listing because it's technically not a listing. And Joe Schmo over here, broker, may call the same owner that's my friend and get the same information from him. But anyway, I digress. So that information, is available to usually a select few people they trust, who've done deals, or in my case, 1031 exchange buyer, or maybe a list of people that have dedicated to say, hey, look, yes, Alex, I want to be on your deal flow list. I'm active in the market, those kind of things. And so that's really what the off-market stuff is stuff that you probably haven't seen. Now, if you're a person that calls every broker in town, you may have seen some of these before because, the stuff gets passed around, unfortunately, quite a bit. So, but it's, we do our best to provide you the best information we have at the time.
Yeah. Well, this is great. So on this discussion, right, we talked about if you don't have any experience, you're honest and telling them what you need, and they, triggers to say this person may be serious in the future. If you are a serious buyer, now you're kind of competing with the other serious buyers to see and if somebody's done 15 or 20 transactions in your space and you've done one, and the brokers are sending, a great opportunity that they know can be closed quickly, usually they're not going to send it to the person who's done one first. They're going to send it to the person who's done a number of transactions, especially if, just like any other business, if you have a customer that is great and transacts with you and follows the guidelines, and let's make sure that this is a great customer, and, just all the way through the process, they're probably going to get a first look at these. So how does that first time buyer, I've done this once, I've done this twice, and I'm trying to figure out how to become, one of those people that gets called first. What are some things that now you can say that as experienced people can do to kind of set themselves apart to make sure I can get on, maybe not the first call, but I'd sure like to be a second or third,
Yeah. And so I think that, and I have one right now. I got a client of mine we never bought anything together. He's never bought anything from me. But he always stays near or, close to the top of my list. He's on my deal flow email. But I know if I get an email from him that says, hey, can I see some more information on it? I know he's a good person because I've talked to him. So you stay in front of the broker, even if it's a text message. Hey, my name is Alex. So, hey, Alex, just checking in, making sure you're okay. I mean, that to me, I'm not a warm, fuzzy person. I really don't care if that person does it. But subconsciously, it's up here that says, this person over here is still a buyer in the market, even if all they're saying is, hey, just making sure you're okay. That's all that needs to happen, I think, with a lot of brokers to keep them, closer to the top of the list. And so that's one thing. And then, have you put in an offer on something? I might have sent you 25 friggin' deals and you didn't put an offer on anything. Yeah. I understand that they might be quote unquote overpriced for you, but I don't know if you know this or not, but all 25 of those deals I sent you, somebody else bought.
They all traded. Yeah.
So having at least some kind of activity. Now I hate the putting deals out there just to put them out there, but if I've got a person who, I like this person a lot, but he's always like, man, I'm almost there. I just haven't been able to buy anything yet. And every time he says that, I say, yeah, I understand, man. It's a competitive market. Have you thought about maybe adjusting your numbers a little bit here and there, and maybe you can get one of these deals? And then if it doesn't work out the way you wanted to, you didn't make a huge mistake because somebody else obviously is buying this at that price. So it works for them. So anyway, those kind of things you evaluate as you're going through the market. Maybe the market's not right for you. Maybe Kansas City or whatever sub-market of Kansas City you're looking at isn't right for you. And you need to look at a different market, which is, totally fine. I understand completely.
All right. Yeah. Good insight. Good gems or nuggets for those people that are trying to figure out how to break into the world. And, last couple of things before you go, we want to make sure that, we say, and you're looking for investors in Kansas City and this is your space. So anybody that's trying to break into this area, you reach out to my man, Alex Olson. He can absolutely help you. Where do they reach out to you?
Best way is email, and that is alex@clemonsrealestate.com, or LinkedIn. You obviously know this. I love LinkedIn. You can find my face on there if you're able to see it, right now or whatever. But LinkedIn, Alex Olson, Kansas City, Clemons Real Estate, and love to chat with you there as well. Any kind of questions anybody's got for me about the Kansas City market or brokerage in general, I'm always here to help.
Yeah, right on. Is there any last kind of thoughts from a standpoint of a great broker? A great broker will make you millions of dollars. How in the heck do I make sure that that I find the right person that I want to work with? What kind of questions, or what should I be asking? And then what should I be listening for?
Yeah, that's a great, I love that question because there are a lot of not good brokers out there. I don't know. I think last I heard there's well over, 1,000 brokers or agents anyway in Kansas City. And there's some good ones here. And I think what you're listening for from a broker is on the commercial side, this is not residential because I don't deal in that world, but is, the numbers that they use, are they realistic? Are they trying to oversell you on something? I'll give you a great example. You come into a market, you say, hey, look, in Kansas City, let's just say, I'm looking for a 7-cap property that's $1 million. Can you find me something like that? I'm probably going to tell you that that's going to be difficult to find here and probably anywhere. But here's what I can do. Everybody evaluates cap rates differently. Here's some properties. So I think a good broker will take the time to provide you some good properties to look at that they have available, even if it's one that they've sold or that sold recently. That way you can see what's trading. And I think that's important is, because I don't care, if you come in here and you say, hey, Alex, I want a 9 cap, I'm probably still going to say, okay, cool. That's great. Let's figure out what you want. And I'll send you what I think are the best deals for you. And if you say, hey, look, these aren't close, I'll say, I'm sorry, this might not be the right market for you. But the first thing is just gauging how people do their cap rate. Because you look at a lot of, even the small mom and pop investors, maybe a local person coming to town, they want a 7 cap. Well, turns out that 7 cap doesn't include property management, doesn't include leasing, because they're doing it all themselves. So they may very well easily be able to get to a 7.5 cap without some of those expenses. So, listening for the broker that they're really trying to understand what you're wanting is important versus someone that says, okay, yeah, I'll send that to you. Or yeah, no problem, I'll send it to you. Are they going to spend a little bit of time with you to start? And then you kind of keep that ball rolling and listen to make sure that they know, what stuff's selling at. Those are the keys. And of course, what have you sold recently? Hey, a good question actually to ask is, hey, what have you seen sell recently? Do you have something you can share with me? Do you have an appraisal of that? I provide that to all my clients is, past appraisals, recent appraisals, stuff that we've recently closed on, just so you can understand what stuff's trading at in the market.
Yeah. So valuable. Because even if you've done a bunch of deals, you haven't done as many as the broker or seen as many as a broker where they see all the deals that trade hands and you're like, okay, well, what's actually, what did they trade at? and this is what it traded at. So that way you have an idea, am I under or over, or what kind of offer should I be expecting to put in my underwriting before I'm even at an LOI standpoint. So this is awesome. Alex, thank you so much for joining, my friend. It's been an amazing conversation, very insightful. And I hope that anybody that's thinking about the Kansas City market, reach out to you guys and your team. Is there anything that you haven't shared today that you really wanted to bring some exposure to, or anything that you were hoping I asked and I just didn't touch on?
I don't think so, man. I love your smile and the attitude, and I really appreciate what you're doing. I'd love to get down to San Antonio. I haven't been down there ever before for some reason.
Yeah.
But I've heard a lot of great things. I had one of my best friends live down there for a couple of years. So I really appreciate what you're doing down there.
Very good, man. Thank you very much. I'm appreciative and love the town, love the area, and I'm appreciative of our friendship and our relationship, brother. So thank you very much. Well, my name is Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the 5 Talents podcast. If you heard something that was just provided you some value, I encourage you, go to our podcast, Apple podcast. You can find the podcast on Stitcher and Spotify and Google and all the other ones. But if you go to the Apple podcast, leave us a rating and a review. A written review would be awesome. It helps us get exposure, which then allows me to get other great guests like Alex. So you can learn more and educate yourself through the process. And then if you are interested in investing in the Kansas City market, which I've heard is a strong one right now, reach out to Alex. I'm sure he'd love to talk to you. So thank you very much, Alex. Appreciate your time, brother. See you at the next show. Bye-bye.
I'd see you, man.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5 Talents podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who follow their dreams and achieve massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5 Talents podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5 Talents podcast.